Victoria Consulting. Karibu sana.
Thanks for having me, Peter.
Now, several different financial institutions did release their results. We had Equity come out, we had KCB come out, and this sort of starts to speak towards the continued recovery of the economy and the supposed resilience of some of our bigger brands against the events of last year.
Absolutely. We saw big banks like Equity Bank, we saw KCB coming through.
Yes.
For the first time, I think we saw Equity Bank beating KCB in the Q1 numbers. So this could be maybe the first time that Equity Bank will be the most profitable bank in the country, just looking at from the Q1 numbers.
Yes.
What does this mean for local brands? Because we've talked about the retail sector also taking a big damage. I think there's a lot more vigor coming in. If you look at shopping outlets like Naivas, they've really rebranded. And there's sort of like a feeling that, yes, we are local, we don't have the international networks, but we are innovative and we understand our markets much better. And I think that's going to be sort of like what will drive these brands moving forward.
Yes. It also speaks into the fact that there is money at the bottom of the pyramid, because for Equity especially, the focus on the lower end of the mass market movement, 12 million accounts sold so far. And this essentially tells you that there is money in the mass market model.
It does. And the way you make money from that mass market is you deploy technology.
Yes.
One of the big secrets Equity has had is they've made massive investments in technology, which means that a big chunk of their loan book is being deployed on the mobile phone, on Equitel. So I think other banks are starting to realize that digitization is the way to go, especially when you're dealing with the mass market, where it's a volumes game rather than a margins game.
Talking about technology, we've seen floods in various places of the country, various incidents, some very sad, others having been nipped in the bud. And the question really is moving from one crisis to another. Last year we did see the drought situation. Now we have floods in many places. It should be simple that we should be able to implement a water storage and harnessing policy that enables not just production of electricity, but indeed safety.
Absolutely right, Peter. I think we've been swinging from one crisis to another, and sometimes it feels that there's no strategic planning towards our water management.
Yes. What about maybe strategic implementation? Because we plan and plan every day, but
I think you're right. I think the planning is there. I think last week I mentioned that there's actually a water master plan that the Japanese have done for this country. The big challenge has always been implementation. A lot of these plans, even the best laid plans, if they're not put on the street, have no purpose. I think, and this also connecting it to the big four, the president's big four, is there has to be a monitoring of, that's the PDU, for example, came in. You need to have a daily monitoring and reporting of the progress. And I think that's what we lack. I think the reason the big four sort of get so much traction is you actually have a presidential delivery unit. But at the county level, I don't see county delivery units being formed where the ordinary Monanchi can have almost like a daily, weekly, monthly update. And I think until we implement those delivery units, I think it will always be talk.
But it is actually someone's work to ensure that this work gets done. Then what about this sort of people? Are we playing into their bureaucracy?
I think we are, in a sense. I think sometimes the structures are not as mature as we'd like to imagine. When we were embracing devolution, one of the challenges we said is, do we have capacity in terms of absorption and implementation? That has always been the issue. But that said, I mean, if you look at, for example, what's happening in Makueni with some of the projects, it's becoming very visible. So it tells you also there's a communication element that sometimes lacks in some of these government offices where good work is happening, but that communication element is somewhat short.
Yes. Let's talk about the I'm not boarding situation. The recent alleged appointment of a deputy governor for the city of Nairobi. As a person in business circles, and from where you sit, you engage a lot with people in business in the city, decision makers and others. Do you think that decision has gone any way towards creating confidence in the city-county government? And what do you think that bodes for the city going forward?
I think the reaction in the business community was shock. In fact, very few people have even given a response to that. I think it was pure shock. I think people are still digesting. And very quickly, the Jubilee Party came in and said that is unlikely to happen. And I think the business community might read, the Jubilee party says, but I think a lot of investors just want some form of confidence and transparency. Nairobi, even if you look at the TIFA report on the governors of the 3 major counties of Nairobi, Kisumu, and Mombasa, all 3 were quite dismal. All 3 were given C+ and below. So I think the thinking is these are the 3 biggest economic hubs of the country. Why can't we support these governors with the right structures to be able to deliver on their commitments? And for me, the appointment of or the nomination of Miguna, it came as a major surprise because he was a major critic of the Jubilee party. So a lot of people just read more confusion on top of past confusion, which is not a very good for a city that we say is the gateway to East and Central Africa.
Maybe this is the same reason that we've started to see business attrition. We've heard of some businesses setting up in places like Kigali, others uprooting and saying they prefer to be based in South Africa and that sort of thing. Do you think this will continue?
A lot of people talk about Kigali. I think Kigali have been able to be very efficient in how they implement government policy. But also a lot of people take offense with the lack of democracy in that country. And a lot of people aspire to have the efficiency of Kigali without necessarily compromising on the democratic space that we enjoy in Kenya. So one of the big debates in political economy is how do you get these great economic rewards without necessarily encroaching on personal freedoms and democratic rights, which Kenyans really, really hold dear.
We also saw Kenya go out and launch its first satellite and literally put itself in a place where the University of Nairobi is saying that it has been a partner, the brains behind the nano satellite, and really speaking to the level of technology in this country.
I was a bit disappointed with how it was communicated. If you think of America sending the first person on the moon, the country literally came to a stop, a standstill. The president gave a whole address to the nation. That the fact that this happened almost a week from today on a Friday afternoon in a distant part of Japan, very few people who are not within the mainstream media even understood what happened. I think for me, there was a major blunder in how it was communicated. That said, the fact that we have a space program in Kenya makes us one of only 3 or 4 countries in Africa. I think that to investors is a very major step. But I really wonder why we didn't give it that spotlight that it would have deserved.
And finally, let's talk about the recent conference that was held, I think, yesterday and some of today, the Morendat conference on oil and gas. And literally a global coming together of experts and minds around the upstream oil sector. Kenyan Pipeline going out there and saying that it is starting to create a center of excellence for the region to present and create staff and skills around the upstream oil sector. Do you think this is at least the first steps towards creating a sort of so to say, real skilling and economy around the oil sector?
Absolutely, because it's preparing people for the future oil prospects of this country. And one of the big talking points critics have had is that there has been way too much secrecy around what's happening in the oil sector. That the fact now that we're having a lot more open, transparent dialogue, we're learning from best practice, not just in Africa, but from across the world. I think it was a very welcome conference. And people now, even university students, can now start aligning themselves with the future oil economy. And I think that bit has been lacking, but I think if they can continue on that trajectory, then definitely we are on the path to being a great oil exporting country.
Yes, in the recent few months, finally, we've had a huge focus on TVET, the training and vocational skills sort of thing. And that is central to this economy because at one point, you remember, we had to import welders all the way from the UK. And we've seen an Australian company come in and start to partner with Kenya Pipeline to be able to create that certification and training locally. Do you think going forward, now because we have this situation where not lots of people will end up in university, we can't be able to start to sell some of these really good and really expensive skills locally?
I have a mixed opinion on that. I think the latest thinking has been the country needs skills, and TVET is the way to go. But I'm a graduate of a liberal arts curriculum.
Yes.
And the benefits of a liberal arts curriculum, it gives you a lot more exposure than a TVET curriculum. So where you get benefits in having adequate skills in doing a particular job, I think we should not make sure that we over-specialize to the extent that people can't think broadly about themselves and about their prospects. And I think we need to really think of balancing what I call the liberal arts and the mechanical arts, the vocational arts. This economy is a growing economy, it needs skills. But for me, when you think of ability to analyze a country, the sociology, the politics, the anthropology, if we sort of like throw that away, then we'll be losing a big chunk of our educational prospects. So I think we need to have a balance of both.
Okay. Indeed, striking a balance. Thank you very much, sir, for your time.
Thank you so much.
But unfortunately, we have come to the end of the show. It has been a pleasure engaging with you today. We hope to see you again next week, of course.
Always a pleasure.
Ken Geshinga from Mentoria Consulting. Asante.
Thank you very much.
Well, indeed, that is where we bring it to a close for this week's editions of KTN Business Today. Of course, over the next 30 minutes, Trading Bell from the Nairobi Securities Exchange checks in, well, just a few minutes at 4 p.m. The news in Swahili from BU KTN will be on, but we will be back again next week at the same time with more from the world of business. Do enjoy your weekend ahead. My name is Peter Akaba. Kwaheri ya kuonana.